To discuss all of this further, we're joined by Edan Landau, who is a researcher and project manager, head of the Situation Room at the International Institute for Counter-Terrorism. Edan, thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We know that Hassan Nasrallah is speaking out on television right now. Tell me, so far, what has come out of that?
Well, basically what he's doing is saying that it's a terrible tragedy, that all Lebanese people should be uniting together behind it without any sectarian divide, that he accepts all help from any international country. He didn't exclude Israel. Of course, he didn't mention Israel. But he's also saying that any claim that HEZBOLLAH had arms inside the port is nonsense, that HEZBOLLAH doesn't know what's going on there, that HEZBOLLAH knows more about the port of Haifa than it does about the port of Lebanon, of Beirut. So he's basically denying any involvement in that.
Well, that's certainly concerning for Israel if he's mentioning Haifa there. Yeah. So tell me, how much do you believe, this horrific blast in Beirut can play into or sort of change the situation on Israel's northern border?
Well, it does have a lot of ramifications. We still need to see how it's going to play out internally. I mean, it's too soon to say it. But there is a lot of call against HEZBOLLAH to basically give up all their arms because they do hold them in residential areas. If all of south of Lebanon does have inside the houses, a lot of the neighborhoods there, they do have rockets aimed at Israel. There are other depots in Beirut itself. Prime Minister Netanyahu already showed some of that evidence himself within the maps. So basically, it does kind of, this ground is kind of shaky underneath HEZBOLLAH at the moment.
So tell me, do you believe that this incident at all could have gone any way to sort of weakening the power of HEZBOLLAH?
Yes, it does have that potential. Basically, if HEZBOLLAH does feel threatened, it might choose to go more hide, kind of lay low. But it does have the potential, out of it being more concerned for its own power, to act more aggressively. Again, this could be aimed at the Lebanese people in kind of a civil war, but it could also be aimed at Israel to try to distract the attention from what's going on internally. And
tell me, it's a very unstable political system we've got here in Israel at the moment, potentially heading toward another round of elections. Tell me, do you believe this plays into the hands of HEZBOLLAH? What way?
I think that maybe they think it does, but at the end of the day, anything that happens on the northern border, there's kind of a set rules within any government in Israel. Of course, no government wants to go into war, especially closer in elections, because you never know how it's going to play out. You might win, which is good for you, or like the Second Lebanon War, which at that moment when it was over, kind of weakened the government, or at least the way it was perceived. So nobody wants to go, but if HEZBOLLAH does react, Israel will definitely retaliate in some way or another.
So do you believe enough sort of focus is being put on the northern border at the moment? We know a lot more troops have been moved there with these threats growing. But, with this coalition crisis, is that sort of setting Israel back a fair bit?
No, not really. I don't think it's going to affect anything internally. Again, security situations, the way the military acts, has its own way of doing it. It doesn't necessarily reflect what's going on in the government. Sometimes the governments will use an increase, an alert for its own political gain, but not in this situation. This is something that started playing out way before.
And tell me, how concerning is it for you right now, seeing these incidents sort of mounting on the border there?
I think this is nothing really unusual. I mean, it is kind of a rapid succession of events, but it's not something which is not thought about, not considered. This is the Middle East, and there are a lot of unexplained or unaccounted for events that do play out and do have an effect on how things eventually turn out.
Well, you certainly are right about that. Edan Landau, thank you so much for coming on to speak to us today. Really appreciate it.